Good morning. Welcome to the Friday edition of The Conversation here on TOS TV Network. And as you already know, is Friday a weekend or a weekday?
I think it's a weekday. Because we're here.
I don't know if it's a weekday or a weekend, but yeah, I promise to be such an exciting and insightful conversation here on TOS TV Network. I am Adesu Osi.
And I am Merciful Ajinomo. Good morning.
All right, before we get into the show proper, allow us bring you the quote of the day. That was Abraham Lincoln basically saying there's no room for mediocre. Whatever you are, be like the best at it. Whether that's good or bad, just be the best at it. If you can't be the best at it, just don't do it. I think that's what it means. Okay, it's about that time we go on the break, and when we come back, we'll be taking you through developments across Africa. Please stay with us. Welcome back. Moving straight into development across Africa, starting from here in Nigeria, where our President Muhammadu Buhari, yesterday commissioned the ultra-modern Niger Delta Development Commission. That's the NDDC headquarters in Port Harcourt. After 25 years, the building commenced. President Buhari, who joined the commission in ceremony virtually from the council chamber of the State House in Abuja, lauded the Minister of Niger Delta Affairs, Senator Gospel Akpabio, for steadfastness in ending many years of renting by the Commission and the attendant profligacy. He recalled that the land on which the NDDC building now stands was acquired by the Oil Mineral Producing Areas Development Commission on PADEC in 1996 and was abandoned after a series of design amendments. In 2015, as part of our administration's cardinal objectives to kill corruption, some critical reforms were embarked on, part of which was a holistic reform of the NDDC for greater service delivery for the people of the region. I think that's coming from President Muhammadu Buhari. I think that's quite commendable because we have across the country, scattered across the country, there are lots and numbers of abandoned projects, especially here in the capital city.
25 years after.
25 years after, yes, and the building is quite an edifice.
Yeah, eventually,
yeah.
So
yeah.
something was about it. So we move on to South Africa, where a passerby was shot dead Wednesday after South African police moved to disperse students protesting against refusal by a top Johannesburg-based university to register those in arrears with tuition fees, local media and the university has said. AFP journalists saw the body of a man lying on his back on the sidewalk, covered with a silver-colored safety sheet, just a street away from the University of Witwatersrand. Clashes erupted when police used rubber bullets to break up a group of students who were blocking roads with rubble and disrupting traffic in downtown Johannesburg around the Wits campus precinct. Students began sporadic protests in early January over the alleged execution of some students by a government-sponsored tuition aid scheme. And they are demanding that Wits University allows all students with outstanding debt to register for the 2021 academic year.
That's quite sad. Very, very sad.
Yeah.
And it just brings to mind what happened here in Nigeria with, the NSAS protest and it's still shooting. It's like they always say, why do you go with live ammunition to a protest ground to disperse people?
And these people are asking for education.
Exactly.
Yeah?
These are students. So it's quite sad. I hope we learn sometime. All right, moving over to Somali, where the ex-president Ali Mahdi Mohammed has died, he died in Nairobi. Somali's former president Ali Mahdi Mohammed died in Kenya's capital city, Nairobi, at the age of 83. Officials in Mogadishu and members of his family announced on Wednesday. According to the family, the former president fell ill in Mogadishu last week and was flown out to Kenya for further treatment. Mr. Mahdi was appointed president of Somalia by loyalists of the United Somali Congress, that's the USC, the rebel group that disposed the late dictator Mohammed Said Barre in January 1991. But his rule was immediately challenged by the late rebel leader Mohammed Farah Aidid. The power struggle between General Aidid and President Mahdi led to months of bloodshed in Mogadishu. Decades later, the country is still struggling to rise from the aftermath of the conflict. Somalia's President Mohamed Farmajo and a host of several opposition politicians condoled with his family, describing Mr. Mahdi as a man who loved his country. Famajo announced a 3-day national mourning period and announced that there will be a special committee to conduct his burial. He said the former leader will have a state funeral.
So we move on to COVID-19 update, and following the delivery of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine, coronavirus vaccine in Nigeria, experts in public health space in the country have assured citizens of the country of the safety and efficacy of the vaccine choice imported by the government. According to a statement by the country's health minister, Dr. Osagi Ehanire, the delivery of the AstraZeneca vaccine was a blessing, noting that it is a feeling of relief and elation that at last we are joining the community of nations who can vaccinate their citizens against COVID-19 disease, which has been raging across the world. We have to some extent lagged, but are relieved that we can now start vaccinating our citizens, the minister stated. Nigeria received 3.92 million doses of the Oxford AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine on the 2nd of March 2021, shipped via the COVAX facility, a partnership between CEPI, Gavi, UNICEF and WHO. The consignment for Nigeria made it the 3rd country in West Africa after Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire to receive the vaccines. Understandably, partners in the forefront of COVID-19 response echoed the minister's excitement.
That's quite, it just reiterated what I said yesterday, that before they start rolling out the vaccine, we should trust the efficiency and safety of the vaccine. But I still think it's not enough for the Minister of Health to come out and say, oh, the vaccines are safe, you can take it. We need to actually see that they're safe, first of all. And then proper sensitization has to be done. Because I think from experience, people don't trust word of mouth. You have to show them that it's actually safe, understand. And I think, the president and the vice president haven't taken the vaccine and are still okay, kind of, further proves that it's safe. And they should still go ahead because, when the president and the vice president took the vaccine, they came out to say that, oh, there's no effect to the drug, nothing, they're okay. But I think they just need to be transparent because people react to drugs, right?
They do, actually.
You react to drugs, even drugs are as delicate or as simple as vitamin C. You still have people who can take it and have reaction from it. So it's talk more of a vaccine. So you should just come out and say, oh, here are some side effects of the drug. You might feel this maybe within this hour, within the first day, but it's okay. Then if you exceed this day, then you might have to just be transparent with it so people would know already what we're settling for. So if I'm taking the vaccine, I already expect that I might feel, some of these symptoms maybe the first day or the second day, and then I'll be okay.
But
now, like, oh,
eventually
it's
safe, because it's protecting you to an extent against the COVID-19.
Exactly. But there are quite a number of Nigerians that are actually looking forward to getting vaccinated.
I know.
Yeah, so it's actually cool. All right, talking about, COVID-19 vaccine, it's about that time where we bring you COVID-19 updates from across Africa. Welcome back. That was COVID-19 update from across Africa, and I'm quite disheartened because I think the last time was around 104,000 deaths and I'm seeing 106,000. So it means we still have rising numbers, and then I think the cases was about 3.9 something million. It's almost 4 million now.
Yeah.
Meaning the cases are still climbing. We're advocating for a reduction in the cases. That means we're still not doing something right. So please get vaccinated, protect yourself, protect the next person. We have to see drastic reduction in the number of, active cases and deaths in Africa. As I always say, we don't want to have to deal with COVID-19 in 2022, even in the fourth or third quarter of 2021. So it has to go, right?
It does have to go.
And then to actually achieve that, we all need to collectively, be responsible and just, take precautions, all of the precautions that have been stated. And if your country has started rolling out vaccine, please get vaccinated so the next person can be protected against COVID. Now, having said that, we're going to go on a break. And when we come back, we'll be taking you through newspaper headlines from Nigeria this morning.
DOS TV Network mobile app is now available. You can now catch up on our breaking news, stream our programs live, Watch out for the latest update on sports and politics as they unfold. You can also get notifications for our upcoming programs and events. All these on our TOS TV Network mobile app, available on Apple Store and Google Play Store. TOS TV News from Africa by Africans.
Being a journalist means in-depth analysis that unravels hidden truths, that question the status quo and fact-checks government.
These criminal elements hiding under the cloak of surveillance contractors are the APC elements.
Do you have facts to prove that? Being a journalist means waking up every day with a burning desire for peace, equity, and justice for all citizens.
We're being told that the choice you have is to take the lesser of two evils.
It means patriotism via the prism of objectivity and accountability. It means giving my platform to the masses to discuss issues that matter to them.
Some of them, if they bring budget, and the budget they look. Some of them sleep. They're going to ask how much you are on. I have it.
Thereby shaping government policies and laws. My name is Osasu Igbenegya, and I am the People's Journalist.
Yes, you can be a part of the conversation across our social media platforms. Follow TOS TV Network on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and also subscribe to TOS TV Network on YouTube. Also, for stories across faces and sectors and across continents, check out our website at www.tostvnetwork.com. Now moving over to the newspaper headlines from this morning, starting with the Blueprint newspaper. I'm going to start from the very top. The first one is from Governor Sule, and it's saying pilgrims fund safer in Hajj savings account. That's coming from Governor Sule. And then moving beside that, Army ready to assist police in internal security. That's coming from the CDS. That story is on page 5. And banks now demand invoice others for online forex transfers. And still on forex scarcity traps MTN's 106 billion naira profit in Nigeria. Now moving over to the very gaping headlines. Amidst rising insecurity, NSA vows federal government won't hire mercenaries, negotiate with bandits and terrorists. And then we have 5 riders under that story. Says it's sign of weakness, threatens to crush criminals. And the next one, lecturer student abducted in Edo, Niger shot schools. PDP government or governors on same page with federal government. That's coming from Tambuwal. Bandits regrouping in Kabu'u Hills in Kaduna. That's coming from a senator. Gunmen kill policeman, injure another in Benue. That story is on page 6 of the Blueprint newspaper. And the picture of the day, I think, saying I think governors and some persons getting vaccinated for COVID-19. And then below with the picture of the day, Iransi Gowon Obasanjo shut us out of governance. That's coming from traditional rulers, lobby lawmakers to get role. Coming from Senator Mwagege there. 9 posts reclaim stamp duty from FIRS. That story is on page 5. Minimum wage removal from exclusive list will destroy the economy. That's coming from TUC. That's on page 15. 70-year-old man offers 25,000 naira compensation for raping 3-year-old girl. Quite, I don't know how I feel about that one. We're broke, reps cry out. All of those stories on the Blueprint newspaper this morning.
And we move on to the national economy, and the first story, beginning from the very top, is over $70 billion invested in telecom sector since 2001. That's coming from the NCC. And the very obvious story on the paper is FG's infrastructure not generating revenue to service debt. And underneath the picture of the day, we see bold partners AFDB on $300 million funding for women-owned businesses. That story can be found on page 5 of the national economy. And just side by side, the Shippers Council charges federal government on linkage of seaport to rail That can be found on page 17 of the national economy.
I'm excited about the funding for women-owned businesses. Kind of sound cliche, but yeah, I'm excited about it.
Right.
And then moving over from there to the Daily Trust newspaper, starting from the very top as well. Despite poor state of schools, 41 billion naira UBEC fund unaccessed. Joint security network for Southeast impossible. That's coming from Umahi. Federal government confirms mild side effect of COVID-19 vaccine. Just corroborates what I was saying earlier about, the side effect of the vaccinations. They're moving over to the very gaping headline. Borno elders, experts to federal government, hire mercenaries to end Boko Haram. Will be harder on criminals. That's coming from President Muhammadu Buhari. Negotiations, sign of weakness. Monguno is the one saying that. NSA speaks our mind. That's coming from officers. I don't know what officers, but if you want to know, you have to get yourself a copy of the Daily Trust. Now, moving over to the next headline, just underneath the picture of the day, how Iran see Gowon Obasanjo laid foundation for insecurity. That's coming from the Sultan of Sokoto right there. Navy begins trial of officers and civilians involved in oil theft. Niger Delta governors absent as Buhari commissions NDDC building. And on the issue of insecurity, Southwest leaders meet in Ibadan. All of that story on the Daily Trust newspaper this morning.
And very quickly, we'll just be, reviewing the Daily Times as well. And begin from the very top story on the paper. European nations suspend AstraZeneca vaccinations over blood clot fears. And the main story on the paper is gunmen abduct teachers, students in Edo, bandits still on rampage in Kaduna, others. That story can be found on page 2 of the Daily Times. And underneath the picture of the day, female-owned businesses, Awosika, Oputa, others seek structural interventions for female-owned businesses. Story can be found on page 5. And talking about the COVID-19 pandemic, skeptical Tanzania's President John Magufuli treats COVID-19 in India, says opposition chief. Story can be found on page 31. And side by side is on confiscated cash. Ibori's confiscated cash belongs to Delta, not federal government. We can get that story on page 3 of the Daily Times.
I'm very particular about the European Union suspending the use of AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccination. I was saying earlier, I think before they brought the vaccines into Nigeria, I was kind of skeptical about it. Oh yeah, we haven't had any cases because that's the vaccine that is being rolled out in Nigeria. We haven't had any cases of it's not working, but it's not working in European countries, right? And it didn't work on the South African variant. So I think that's one more reason why people are still skeptical about why are we rolling out the vaccine if the efficacy and efficiency of it is not even known and it's not even 100? How are we sure that it's going to work for us? Are we not wasting time? I think it's all of these things should have been, put in place, tested to be sure that we're actually not wasting time rolling out the AstraZeneca.
But then again, according to some people, there was no time to really, fully, test these things before rolling it out, because according to what they say on Twitter, when you go on Twitter and say, oh, what was happening? Are you supposed to, are you not supposed to test these things first and stuff? They're like, yeah, they had sufficient time to do things, but it's not 100% efficient.
Well, they always say no drug can be 100% efficient. But if it's not working in this part of the world and it's not working in South Africa,
then
and they have issues with it here, I don't know. I just have reservations about it, and that's why I keep hammering on the fact that it should be tested, and we should be very sure about the efficacy and efficiency of it first before starting to rolling it out, citizens and all of that, because we don't want to start having, casualties or start having cases where, oh, it didn't work, so we now have to, start revaccinating people and all of that, time wasted and all of that. So, and I think before the vaccines got in, the NAFDAC had said, I think it was NAFDAC or the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency, I said they were going to test them properly to ensure that it's safe for use in Nigeria before bringing them in the country. I'm not sure if they've done that or they did that, but we just hope that.
Yeah, I think that's across because they have actually already vaccinated a few persons in different states and even in federal government and everything. So,
all right, moving over to the Leadership newspaper this morning for Friday, the Leadership Friday. NUT kicks as Niger shut down public secondary schools. That story is on page 11. Beside it, states failed to access 41.6 billion naira UBEC grant. I think there's the education fund. PDP board rejects move to sack party's NWC That story is on page 13. And then the very gaping headline on the Leadership newspaper this morning: 1 year after COVID-19, manufacturing sector struggles despite federal government's 1 trillion naira grant. The first rider under that: production value drops from 7.38 trillion to 2.36 trillion naira. Unsold goods hit 303.22 billion naira as 83% household cut consumptions. More governors receive jabs, flag of vaccination in state. Experts differ on safety of AstraZeneca vaccines as Denmark, Iceland, Norway suspend user. I think that just corroborates what I was saying earlier. Then moving over, PMB goes tough, says will be harder on criminals. And the rider under that, as NSA rules out use of mercenaries on dialogue with bandits. Those stories can be found on the Leadership newspaper this morning. Or that's the much you can take on the newspaper headline for this morning. But as I always say, you have to be fully abreast of what's happening in the country, right? And even if you're Nigerian in the diaspora, you still have to be fully abreast of what's happening here. So that's why you should get yourself a copy of this, the Leadership, or any of the other newspaper that I've wrote out or read out to you this morning. And if you can't get the hard copy, there are e-copies, or you can just check out our website for these stories, www.tostvnetwork.com. Having said all of that, we're going to go on a break, and when we come back, I will be taking you through what's trending on social media. Welcome back to the conversation on TOS TV Network. It's about that time where I take you through what is trending on social media. And guess what has been trending in the last 24 hours? Hashtag NDDC. That's the commissioning of the NDDC building. The one that was abandoned for 25 years was finally completed after 25 years. It's like NDDC no longer have to, pay rent over a building. Now, the 6 governors of the Niger Delta state on Thursday were conspicuously absent as President Muhammadu Buhari commissioned the 16 billion naira headquarters building of the Niger Delta Development Commission in Port Harcourt, Rivers State. The completion and eventual commissioning of the project brought to an end 25 years of aimless waiting after the groundbreaking ceremony, which was initiated by the defunct Oil Mineral Producing Area Development Commission. That was 25 years ago. Now, the commissioning the edifice, President Buhari thanked the Minister of Niger Delta Affairs, Senator Godswill Akpabio, for steadfastness in ending many years of rents by the commission and on the attendant profligacy. I mean, we're saving money now. The bidding hasn't completed. We don't have to pay rent. The NDDC doesn't have to pay rent, so money has been saved. But I think the gist here is the governors and Niger Delta governors been absent at the commissioning of the building. So I'm going to take out a few tweets to that regard. The first one is from Mr. Joshua Sampson. He says 3 buildings the Muhammadu Buhari administration has been able to complete after abandonment by previous governments, some as far as 2 decades. NCDMB headquarters in Bayelsa State, EFCC headquarters in Abuja, NDDC headquarters in Port Harcourt. All buildings are fully owned by the commissions, no rent. The next one is by the Rose Akai. This NDDC building is not what Niger Deltans are asking for. Develop our region and stop this fanfare for a project that has no direct impact on the people. Okay, moving over to the Agbolutai. Only an evil person will hate Buhari or Buharists that are supporters of President Muhammadu Buhari. If you doubt this, go and watch the commissioning of the NDDC headquarters, which started 26 years ago. Buhari would never know sorrow, even to his generations to come.
He's a passionate
supporter of the Buhari administration. And then on a lighter note, my own be say how person could take enter NDDC. The workers, they are silent ballers. So it's like I haven't seen the building and the edifice since this going on, you know. But I think the tweet that caught my attention is the one by Rose Akai that says the NDDC building is not what Niger Deltans are asking for. Develop the region and stop the fanfare. The project has no direct impact on the people. And I know Niger Deltans are always very particular about, you know, what happens in their region, especially, you know, with development of the Niger Delta, you know, especially because, you know, that's like the oil producing, the major oil producing part in the country. And then they keep saying we've been exploited, things that keep happening, we don't have the share, I don't know how to put it, the share of you know, the oil money coming into the country, which is like, you know, all of that, we're not being carried along, we're being abandoned, despite the fact that we're the one, you know, producing the oil that the country is resting on. So I think to an extent I can understand why this person is saying, look, I don't care about this building, just do stuff for the Niger Delta region. The building is not going to have an impact on us, whether it is a building or an office. I don't care about it. What I care about is development in the region.
Concerning the James E. Boris loot that has been on, you know, on top of the headlines, they're saying, look, get this money to this state. Like we have been sidelined for a long time. The last money that came in was used for different purpose. So this is still like pretty much a ripple effect on the life of this Delta. And I can get what she's saying.
Yes, I'm usually very pained when you go to the Niger Delta and see how underdeveloped a lot of those places are. I mean, this is where the oil money is coming from, largely, right? But it's still so underdeveloped as compared to places like Lagos, Abuja,
where we have no
exactly. So I think that's why a lot of Niger Deltas are very pained and very particular. Especially, you know, I think that there was a time we had a conversation here on the show with somebody at the Niger Delta Commission talking about the petroleum industry bill, and it was so sure that the bill isn't going to have any effect even on the Niger Delta, because they are still not being carried along, and they are still not being, their concerns are still not being, you know, infused in the petroleum industry. So it's still as though like we're wasting our time. But I really don't know. I don't have a stand here. I don't have a stand as to what it is on this side or what it is on this side. But I'm just, you know, seriously advocating that in Niger Delta, you know, they developed, like, brought up to par. Do you understand? You should go to the Niger Delta and feel like, oh, yeah, this is the oil money is coming from. Exactly. So the oil money state. So I think that's just my personal opinion. All right, that's much you can take on the social media segment of the conversation. It's about that time where we go on the break to bring you the big story.
North to South Africa, East to West Africa, TOS TV Network is your digital-first Pan-African news network, bringing you news from across the continent. Visit our website www.tostvnetwork.com and follow us on social media at TOS TV Network on Instagram, Facebook and Twitter. Watch us on television, channel 138 on TSTV Africa.
You're welcome back. It's still the conversation on your digital first Pan-African News Network channel, TOS TV. And to the main part of the show, the crux of the conversation is the big story. A bill seeking to, amend the 1999 Constitution to allow states to determine minimum wage has scaled second reading in the House of Representatives. And the Federal Parliament passed the minimum wage bill on March 19, 2019, and it was transmitted to Buhari on April 2nd, as he signed this on April 18th, 2019. However, the implementation of the law by state government has been difficult. But this morning, we are joined by Chime Perez, CEO, Joel and Hudson Company. Mr. Chime, you're welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
How are you?
I'm good.
Good,
morning.
good.
Yeah.
Good morning. First, what are your reactions towards, the recent development regarding the minimum wage?
Well, I think we should start from the issue of non-implementation by some state governments. I think it's ridiculous, really, that in 2021, we're still talking about a minimum wage that is less than $100 a month, and state governments can't afford to pay workers that amount. And I think state governments are trying to work behind the scene to use the National Assembly to manipulate our constitution so that they can determine what they pay in their states. And so the governor can wake up one morning and say, look, we can only afford to pay 5,000 naira a month. And that's what will happen. So I think it's a shame, and it's actually a disgrace, really.
Okay, so what would that spell for uniformity of minimum wage in Nigeria if state governments decide to pick, if the bill is passed into law and state governments decide to pick up that, what would be the implication of that on the Nigerian labor market?
I think one of the first things that will happen is that we will begin a process of entrenchment of slavery, really. Because if a governor comes tomorrow and says, I can pay only 5,000, another one comes tomorrow and says, well, what I can afford is 2,500 a month. And then people just start paying whatever they like, depending. So you can imagine when because we've had a shortfall in revenue.
Yeah.
And so the amounts going to states have reduced. Now, so the government can say, look, what we are collecting from the federal purse is so small that I will pay you what I think. Next month, it could be something else. So because they control the levels of power in their states, they can keep on using the legislature to do whatever they want to do. And if you look at it, really, we as a country, we are part of the ILO, that's the International Labour Organization.
Yeah.
And the ILO prescribes the processes for determining the minimum wage. And usually the minimum wage is a national minimum wage. So basically what happens is that the federal government determines what the minimum wage is, which means that that's the least any federating unit can pay. So you don't go below that amount. So if we decide to say we don't want to do that, because the excuse that was given was because because it's a federal, we operate a federal system, so give autonomy to the states. But the US is also a federal system, and US has a uniform minimum wage. So I think it's a flimsy excuse, really.
So, but why would you say that? Because I know that the Senate has come out to say, oh, the bill is just an opinion. It doesn't reflect what we actually think. It's just an opinion and somebody's trying to bring an opinion. But why would you say that they initially thought about passing this bill in the first place? Because I would argue that it's just, to ridicule the bill, minimum wage bill that was passed into law. I think it was in 2019.
Yes.
Yeah, so, but why would you say that somebody would actually come up with, thinking about passing this bill into law?
Okay, so what really happened was that I think only a handful of states have agreed to pay the 30,000 naira minimum wage. The excuse that states can't pay isn't tenable, simply because you find out that there are excesses in all these states. There are returning of aids. You have people. There was a story about somebody who had close to 3,000 aids, a governor. 3,000 aids. Then you have the security votes. What do you use security votes for? Security votes are used for what? To settle friends, cronies, and so the monies to pay is there. They can't tell us that, because once you deal with leakages, when you deal with the avenues through which state governments spend allocations to them, you'll be able to pay the workers. 30,000 naira a month is ridiculous. And the painful part is this: we are only looking at it from the state governments alone. Even private businesses you have teachers who get paid 10,000 a month, 15,000 a month. Yeah. So we should not just look at the minimum wage from the point of view of the state governors alone. Even private sector people too, aren't even paying the minimum wage. So that's a problem as well.
Okay, so I've always had, before you go, I've always had a question, because you literally just mentioned it, and it just reflects my thought that I've always had. So if the minimum wage is passed into law and is implemented, it doesn't just affect, public sector, including, private-owned businesses have to pay that amount to the workers. That's what it is.
Provided you employ, because before it was the minimum wage, you could only pay the minimum wage if you employed 50 people.
Okay.
Now, with the new Act in 2019, that threshold was reduced to 25.
Okay.
So the moment you employ about 25 people, you should pay that minimum wage, that 30,000 minimum wage. So let me clarify that.
Oh, okay.
You should pay that minimum wage.
Yeah, no, that's very clear.
So now, when the minimum wage becomes a thing, across all states in the country, is there like a genuine or a fiscal implication of that on our economy? Because people are even saying it's small. So like, why all the whole fuss around this? Is there an implication of that?
I think what has always happened in terms of the minimum wage is that once you increase the minimum wage, inflation basically takes away what you've increased. Because what happens then is that market women, traders, transporters will say, well, they just increased your salary. So we too will increase, we want our own share of that. So really, I think that it goes beyond. The figure 30,000 is ridiculous, but I'm not particular about that figure. I'm more particular about purchasing power. What can that increment get you in the market?
Exactly.
So when we talk about the minimum wage, the problem we have in Nigeria is that we always deal with issues in isolation. That's okay, this is minimum wage. But then you have to look at it. What is the package around minimum wage that makes it possible for people to be able to because now what people are earning is basically it's not a living wage. The 30,000 is not a living wage. It's just something to say, I'm giving you something for showing up every day. Now look at this. You increased the minimum wage, but electricity tariffs have gone up.
Yeah.
Petroleum prices have gone up. So virtually everything has gone up. VAT has gone up. So basically, you are giving with one hand and taking away with the other hand. So basically, for me, it's more about what happens in the economy and what workers can use that money to do. It goes beyond, increase it to 200,000 a month, really. You will still have the same problems of inflation and everything. So the minimum wage argument goes beyond the figure. Because mind you, Labour was asking for 65,000 and they brought it down to 30,000. And that 30,000, it still can't, it doesn't cut it really.
So in your opinion, how do we now find a balance? Because according to what you said, even if we increase it to 200,000, we'll still have the issue that it's not enough because of inflation rate. So where do we now find a balance?
I think one of the things we need to do, and we need to be honest with ourselves, and we need to have this conversation. It has to be an honest conversation. It's a conversation that a lot of people would not want to get themselves involved with, but it's something that we need to discuss if we really want lasting solutions to it. One is that we need to sustain the push towards producing what we eat and eat what we produce.
Okay.
We need to begin to do that. One of the things also is that we need to create an environment for businesses to thrive. We need to create an environment for investment to come into the country as well. You need to create the access to capital, access to land for entrepreneurs. There are many young Nigerians who really would want to employ people, be employers of labor, but the resources and the means to do that, in some cases the barrier to entry is really high because of lack of capital to do it. Now, one other thing we must also tell ourselves is this: there is no, in terms of, because now we are talking about the inability to pay and all that, and I always believe that there needs to be some form of reform of the civil service. I strongly believe that the civil service needs to be reformed in the sense that we have too many people. Now, you have the Onasanyi report. The Onasanyi report is something that every Labour doesn't want to talk about it because they are worried about, people are going to lose their jobs. And I agree. But there are people in jobs in government who have no business there.
Yes. Because
you have people who use the civil service as a way of compensating. It's the same thing as employing aides. You use the civil service to compensate your friends, your associates, your colleagues, family members. So every year you keep on doing that. And the wage bill keeps going up. Because the conversation here really is that if less than 5% of the Nigerian population is taking close to 60 or 70% of our national budget in salaries and wages, It's an honest conversation that we must have, and people don't want to have that conversation because people are worried that, look, people are going to lose their jobs. I'm not saying people should lose their jobs. I'm saying that we need to have an honest conversation and say, look, how can we make people should get what? Because you see, I always believe that, look, the civil service will always be there. Politicians will come and go. So the engine that drives our country is the civil service, and it must be robust. It must be a civil service that is creative and innovative. And you just need to put people in the right roles. You don't have a situation whereby there's a particular role and 5 people are employed to do that same role. It's a problem, and that's what we have in the civil service. And we must have that conversation. That conversation must be had. So it's 2 ways. Labour needs to become more patriotic, in my opinion. Yeah, they've also, because for example, what we are talking about now, sorry for digression, what we're talking about now,
it's fine.
They waited until the second reading before they protested. The
Exactly.
moment it came on the floor, it's like shut down the National
Yeah,
Assembly.
exactly.
So when you guys have the Labour, they practically compromise, or they are chummy with politicians. This is the kind of things you have.
Okay.
You know, so that's my my own view.
personal.
Is there an alternative measure you think that the Labour Congress can take other than protesting? Because if we're going to look at it from a holistic point of view, there are people who don't have things to to leverage on. People, if some places close down, some people will lose their jobs.
Yes.
So is that an alternative means you think that the NLC can come up with to make sure that this thing comes?
The only alternative is to begin a conversation.
Okay.
But we know where conversations bring us to in this country.
Just talk and talk.
You just talk. So you want government's attention, you have to protest.
So alternative to having a dialogue is to protest.
Yes.
Right? So what would you say now, having looked at all of this, that the Nigerian Labour Congress is actually proactive in its measures across, borders and across FACEA? Would you say the Congress itself is actually proactive?
Well, you have the NLC, you have the TUC, you have those units.
Yeah.
I don't think they have been. I don't think they have been. And I think because, in my opinion, they are also politicians, and they are also out there. Because I don't think, personally, my own personal opinions, I don't think that the interest of the union is paramount to the leaders. Because you find out that, remember, I think it was a few years ago, when there was this crisis during the elections, the NLC couldn't conduct elections. First of all, they brought in fake ballot papers, they did all of those, they fought themselves. And then you're saying, you guys are the ones that Nigerians are looking to say, look, help us, check government, the excesses of government. And then you can't hold an election that is free, fair, and credible. So for me, I think that the NLC needs to reform itself, really needs to reform itself, and decide that, look, we are standing for the interests of Nigerian workers. Because at the end of the day, the NLC serves not just for people in public sector, as well as in the private sector. We are standing to protect the interests of our people. Because when you look at unions, it interests me when I see unions in South Africa. What I find interesting mostly is when they are protesting, they keep on singing and chanting and dancing and doing all that. But those unions are very effective. The unions in South Africa are very effective in driving home their demands. And we don't have that here. So the NLC needs to reform itself. They are basically, the politics of Nigeria has found its way into the NLC. And it's working, it's not in the best interest of the workers.
Nigerians.
Yeah.
Okay, lastly, before we let you go, I have one question. Let's go back to the minimum wage bill, right? I think when you were answering one of the questions, you did say that some of the states have said they don't have enough funds to actually pay the minimum wage, and that's why they're saying, okay, let each state decide what they can pay. So let's assume that's true, they don't have. Should we now be advocating for more state budgets from the federal government? Should that be what we should be doing at this point?
Well, in times like this, when you have little or no revenues, states need to become creative. But the idea, and what you've raised now, goes back to the issue of running a truly federal system. There are certain things that the federal government is doing that states can easily do. For example, some people have talked about resource control. Some people have talked about the fact that, look, give these things to the federating units and let them pay tax to the center. so that the states have more. Really, I believe that the states should actually have more resources than the federal. That's what I think. And it goes into the idea of resource control, restructuring. It brings us back to the restructuring argument. That's the truth. Restructuring, and so giving states access to. I heard so recently. I think it was the South PDP. I think they had their convention or something, and they said, "Look, we want an increase in derivation that comes to us."
Yeah.
So I think that states should be given some. We actually need to discuss also the issue of restructuring through federalism. It takes us back to those things, so that states have resources to do what is required to build their states.
Okay, do you have any concluding statements before we wrap up the show?
Well, I think the only thing I would just say is this, is that our state governments have no excuse not to pay. Cut down your excesses, cut down on necessary expenditure. I really don't know what the security votes are for. Pay those people working in your states. It's as simple as that.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much, Chime, for coming. I can call you Chime, though.
Yes, that's
Thank you so much for coming to the show. It was such a pleasure to have you.
Same here.
And thank you guys for joining the show this morning. It's been The Conversation here on TOS TV Network. And as I always tell you, you can be a part of the conversation. Follow us across social media platforms, TOS TV Network on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Also check out amazing lineup of programming that we have for you on YouTube. It's TOS TV Network. And also check out our website at www.tostvnetwork.com. I am Adesua Osui.
And I am Merciful Ajinamo.
Thank you for joining the show.